Mute them up.
Hello everybody, and welcome to YouTube Model Builders Wednesday night show. Tonight's show is the Arduino workshop with Chris of MRL Trains. And let me get back over here. And want to let everybody know to go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check the schedules for the Tuesday and Wednesday shows. Tuesday and Wednesday shows are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And the Thursday night shows and the Saturday once a month show is 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And also be sure and click on the eMag and sign up for an email notification for when it comes out. JD and his team do a good job on that. And we'll get on into the show now. I want to turn this thing over to Chris so we can continue working on the speedometers. So there you go, Chris, you're hot.
All right. Thanks, Johnny. Just out of curiosity, Johnny, I'm not seeing the main screen. Are you sharing the whole thing? Okay, I'm just seeing the 4 windows right now. So, all right, so welcome everybody. Tonight we're gonna go ahead and finish up with our speedometer, do a few more modifications, and make this thing even better than what we did last month. For those of you who maybe didn't watch live last month but caught the YouTube video, if you have your speedometer set up where we left off last month, that's where we're gonna pick up tonight. And yeah, I was going to have a special guest tonight, Steve Spence. He's actually the guy who created the code I used to start our project. And he had some really cool things to share with us, but unfortunately he's having difficulties with his connection. So we're going to have to try again next month if we can. I really want to get him on the show. He's got some really neat stuff to share. But Steve, sorry we can't get you on tonight. Hopefully you can work out something with your connection. And also, before I get started, I want to just give a couple shout outs. Been getting a lot of good feedback via email from you guys, and I know there's a lot of you guys are out there working on this because I'm getting questions and requests for parts lists and things like that. So I'm really happy to see that. But some of you guys in the last 2 weeks have emailed me, and I haven't been real good at getting back to you because I've just been so busy. I'm not ignoring you. I will try and get back to you sometime this week or next. But just a little shout out to Sam, Greg Hines, Steve Massacre. He's doing some really nice stuff. I'm going to have him on as a guest in the upcoming future. Jim Gifford, he's working on a speedometer. He shared some sketches with me, working out the bi-directional. He did it one way, I did it another way. They both work, but it's really neat to share the sketches and see how you can make the same thing work 2 different ways. Tony, got your emails. Scott, I'll get you that bi-directional code. I know you're asking for that. You will get it tonight if you're watching. There'll be a link that you can get it, but otherwise I'll send it to you again anyways. Rob Morrison, going way back. He's looking for some parts back from January, so I'm glad to see you jumped in and you're going to try and work through these. And if you have any other questions, just email me. I will try and get you that parts list. I just have to actually go back and watch the video myself because I didn't keep that, unfortunately. So, and of course, last but not least was Steve Spence. I've been working with him a little bit on the side too, and like I said, we'll get him on the show again, hopefully, if he can work out his connection issues. So that's the one problem. It does take a little bit to be able to stream like this. You have to have a pretty good system or you can run into trouble. So that's why we often have difficulties on these shows. But so without any further ado, let's I'll bring up my Arduino and we'll go ahead and get this thing going. So I'm just repositioning my camera. Turn it off for a second so I don't make you seasick. There we go. I guess I have to do that anyway, so. All right, so what you're seeing here is pretty much a completely finished speedometer with extras. If you remember, we started last month just using this, and at the end of the show we talked about adding some LEDs, and then eventually we're going to work our way up to an LCD tonight. So we're basically working with the same code with just a few more modifications and a few more parts. So just to give you a quick demonstration before I tear this apart, if I just cover one sensor and then the other, you'll notice that over here on this screen, this one didn't do anything because it's nothing in the code for it, but on the LCD, this is where we're going to get to. It says ready right now, and it holds the last reading in miles per hour, the way I have it set. And it's going to hold that for the next, till I trip this again. So I'll trip it, it says started, trip it again, finished. And it's bi-directional. I can start on this side. Oh, I have to wait there. Now it's ready. So I can trip it again on that side and over here. So that's what we're working our way up to, a nice bi-directional speedometer that, and you can change the text, but one that, you know, shows you in miles per hour or kilometers per hour if you change the math. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and pull out a couple of these LEDs. And I'm going to pull off the LCD for now, just so you don't see it. And we're going to go back to where we left off last show. Share my screen with you. So if you look up at the top here, this is a website you'll need to go to that has a link. Right down here is the link, download sketches for October 4th workshop. So go to this page up here. It's sites.google.com/view/Arduino workshop. That'll bring you to this web page, and go ahead and bookmark that if you didn't last month, because this is where I'll continue to post and keep links to the sketches and what we did each month. As you can see, this got a little talk about what we're going to do this month, and then there's links down below to previous workshops, September 6th and the sketches, August 2nd and the sketches. So I'll just keep building this web page as we go. So I'll just give you guys each a minute to get to that website, and then open, when you click on this link, it's going to open a folder on a Google Drive that I'm sharing. And in here are all the sketches that we'll use tonight. And there, each one is just a little modified version of the one before it. So once you get this far, I would say just download all of them right away. But we're going to start by using this part 1 version 4, the one I have highlighted now. So I'm going to stop sharing, or I'll just go ahead and load that one up. So part 1 version 4, that way I can at least open the sketch and get to showing that while I wait for you to get caught up. So hopefully you guys were all working along last week or last show, and you have the libraries loaded that we need to use for this sketch. If not, you need the TM1637 display.h, which I do believe I had in that folder from last month, and it's even in the folder for this month, I think. Let me just take a look quick. Now, if you need that real quick, just go to the links to sketches for September 6th. On the Google Drive, you'll see this TM1637 master.zip. That's the library you'll need. But for those of you that are caught up now, let's go ahead and close these out. Save my speed. So this is the sketch we're going to use. You can just go right ahead and load that in to your Arduino, and I'll show you what it does. So if you left everything built the way we left off, you're in perfect shape right now. As soon as that's done compiling and loading, there we go. That's done. So I'm going to stop sharing. So what this does, just a real quick review, is you trip the first sensor and you trip the second sensor and it gives you your readout. And that's pretty much all it does. Then it resets to 0. Trip the first one, trip the second one, there's your speed in miles per hour, and it's done. So that's pretty simple, but you know, I use my speedometer for speed matching, so I really learned a lot of things from that. You kind of learn that there's a few things you'd like to have, like you want to know when it's tripped, first of all. You know, if I trip this right now, I really have no way that of knowing or confirming that I actually tripped it. I have to go hit the other one and hope that it did. And one of you guys emailed me, I think it was possibly Jim, and he talked about, yeah, I tripped it and it was running for half an hour before I tripped it again. So yeah, because you really don't have a way of knowing that you tripped it. So what are we going to do to fix that? Well, that's simple. We're going to get, if you want to pull out of your kit, if you don't have it already, a red, yellow, and green LEDs. And then, of course, the resistors you'll need to go with it. I left mine mounted on the breadboard for now, but anything between like a 270 and 1,000 ohms is fine. 270 to 1,000 ohms. Same thing we always use for LEDs. So what you're going to do is take the first one, which in my case we're going to use the yellow one, and just put one leg into the negative rail of your breadboard. Put the other leg somewhere in the middle here, and then just bridge across with the resistor. Then we're going to take a wire, in this case it's my red one right here. I'm just running it from the same other leg of the resistor to, let's see, that's pin number 13, which happens to be the LED that's also the onboard LED on the Arduino. So if you go ahead and get that LED and the resistor put in, and then upload the sketch, what you will end up with is you trip it once. You notice the red light on the LED over here where my finger is pointing lit up, but unfortunately this one didn't, so I probably put it in backwards. And you trip it again and it goes out. So the one way to test, that's why I used pin 13 for the first one, so that you get that onboard LED light kind of as a confirmation that. So I tripped it once. I can see right down here that the red LED on my board is on. When I trip it again, it goes off. What I'm going to do now is just turn this LED around and try it again. Maybe I didn't load the right sketch. Oh, there it is. Okay. Just had to wait for it to reset. So now if you have it wired right, what that does is it tells you once you trip the first sensor. Right now I'm waiting for it to reset. There we go. So we're sitting at 0, waiting for the first to go past the first sensor. Once you do, that LED comes on. Now you know for sure that you tripped that first one. And as long as that LED is on, it tells you you're waiting for the second one to be tripped. So now I tripped it and it's done. And that was 1 mile per hour because I waited so long. If I do it a little faster, there's a trip and a trip, 9 miles per hour. So that's kind of a nice little visual indicator, warm and fuzzy, that you know you tripped that first one and it's just waiting for the second one. So is everybody caught up? Got it working? Any questions out in YouTube land before I move on? It's fairly simple if you guys have been working along with us. If you're just jumping into Arduino, it might be seem a little more complicated, but based on everything we've done in the past, this is all things we've done, so it makes it a lot easier. So the next thing we're going to do is put in another, I took my green LED, and we'll do the same thing. Put the one leg in on the rail, negative rail, jump it across, put your resistor across the middle, and then you're going to run another wire. This one is going to go to pin 11 this time. So this white wire right here is running from the resistor here to pin 11. And while we're at it, let's just go ahead and put the third LED in right away too. In this case, it's going to be the red one. And hopefully I'm putting these back where I had them. I just kind of tore it apart and didn't pay a lot of attention. I've had it set up since I did this a week or two ago. You notice I keep tripping it every time I reach in there. So even though I have, by the wire for, I'm sorry, the wire for that third LED, which is the red one, is going to go to pin 10. So at the end of the day, we're going to have 10, 11, and 13 as our 3 LED pins. But you notice even though I'm tripping the sensors, only the one LED is functioning. That's because the sketch I have loaded right now only has the functionality in the code for just the one LED. So now if we go back to our list of programs or of sketches, go ahead and screen share. The next one is version 5 and it says 2 LEDs. So I'm going to go ahead and open that one. You know, you guys can do the same thing. And this is basically the same sketch with a few more lines of code to account for the second LED. So there's the sketch, and if I hit the upload button, it shouldn't take too long to upload because it's almost basically the same sketch, so it doesn't have to recompile everything or figure it out before it does. Now, these are just kind of things that I thought would be handy. I mean, we had the functional speedometer, but as I was working with it, it was just like, yeah, I don't know when it was tripped. And then same thing, I don't know when it's in a ready state waiting to be reset. So that's why I added the second speedometer. So that's done uploading. I'll stop sharing. Back my camera. I'm just going to do a quick reset on my Arduino. Oh, something's not right here because that red light should not be on like that. Oh, there we go. I know what it is. I have mine backwards. What it's supposed to be right now is a green light telling me that it's ready. And I have the speed holding until the next time we trip it. Because the one thing I learned with my AccuTrack speedometer is after 5 seconds that speed goes away. Well, when you're speed matching, you look at it, or if you look away for a second and look back and it's gone, and you, what was that number again? So this time I programmed it in so that the number stays until the next time you trip the first sensor. So if I trip the first sensor now, see the yellow light went on, that means it's waiting for the second trip. I hit the second trip, it gives me the new number. Then it's going to stay on that number instead of zeroing out. Just another experiment. You'll notice every version has a little different way on how the numbers display, because I kept trying things until I got it just the way I wanted to. So last time it zeroed out first because we didn't have a light to tell us that it was ready. So the 0 was the way of telling us that it was ready. Now I have a light to do that, and I'm just going to switch these two around. You'll probably have to do the same thing because I had you wire it the way I told you to wire it. Yours will be wrong too. So the one that goes to pin 10 is actually the green one. The one that goes to 11 will be the red one. There, so now this should hit, there we go. So all in all, the way this is now working with this line of code, if it's working right for you, is it should be sitting on green. with a speed readout of some sort. You trip the first sensor, it goes to yellow. It tells you it's now in sensing mode, waiting for the second sensor. Now I hit the second sensor, it gives me a speed. Nothing's happening with the red one yet because we didn't load that set of code yet. We're pretending that one doesn't exist yet. I like to add them one at a time, test them out, and see how it goes. So in this version, that's exactly what we had, was trip it, get a yellow, trip it again, get your speed reading. So the only problem, and now it's green says ready. So the only problem I had with this one was, okay, now I know when it's sensing, I know when it's ready, but I have nothing to tell me that it's in the delay mode. Because you remember in the code we had like 5 seconds of delay at the end so that the speed reading stayed up. From the time I trip this, trip that, there's a 5-second delay now until that green light comes back on. So you could either remember that if you see no lights that it's in delay and it's not ready yet, or you could go ahead and add a third LED. So that's what I did. So let's go ahead and load up the next sketch. And that's going to be part 1, version 6, 3 LEDs. That's the neat part about this. It's all like building blocks, you know, and that's why one of the reasons I chose Steve's code over some of the other ones that were out there. There were certainly more elaborate, you know, ones like the Valley speedometer was extremely nice, had a lot of features, but it was kind of a deep dive for beginners. So I kind of wanted to avoid that one. I looked at a couple other ones that I didn't think provided the building blocks that this one did. I think this one was just perfect as a starting point for us. And once again, I thank you for that, Steve, because it's really working well to show how you can not only take that basic code, but then keep enhancing it in very simple steps. I mean, you could take one of these sketches that I gave you and just run with it just the way it is. It's all personal preference. If you're only going to mount this in your track just to see how train going by, how the speed is, probably any one of these that we've done is just fine. You probably don't even need these LEDs. But if you're using it for speed matching, you know, you go ahead and you trip one, you trip the other, you see the speed. Well, then you go down to write your speed or go to JMRI to make an adjustment. If you forget what that speed was, or if you don't have, you know, there's things like, what did I trip it? Did I not trip it? There's all kinds of little things like that. So you notice this time I have it going back to 0. Even though I have 3 lights, now I trip it the first time, it's reading. Now it's done. Now the red light tells me that it's not ready. It's in delay. It's showing me the speed. Then when it goes back to the, what's that, Johnny? Oh, sorry. Thank you. So after you're done uploading, stop sharing. I forgot to do that. Now, can you see it?
Yeah.
All right. So on this one, you notice it's at 0 again, and the green light is on when it's ready. The last one I didn't have at 0. It was just an experiment to see if I get that number to stay. If you're not interested in the number staying, you can have it re-0 like this. So now we trip it. I get the yellow light. It's waiting for this next sensor. Hit the second one. There's the red light. That's telling me that it's not ready. It's giving me time to read that readout and do whatever I need to do. And finally, it turns green and goes back to 0. Now it's ready for the next train. So you kind of have your choice. You can have it 0, or you could go back and copy the code from the last sketch if you want it to, that number to stay in here until the next reading. It all depends on how you're using your speedometer. Like I said a minute ago, are you using it for speed matching, or are you using it for what was the speed of a train that one of your operators went by with? You know, if you're speed matching, dropping back to 0 is probably fine. or even if on your layout, maybe you don't want it to stay at whatever the speed was until the next train comes by, because that might fool somebody. So you might want to have it re-zero like this. All in all, it's just a matter of adding an LED and just a little bit more code. And if you dissect those sketches that I just gave you, you'll see that there's not a lot of difference just to add those extra LEDs. So at the end of the day, I thought, yeah, this is all fine and dandy, but what I still didn't like about it was my particular 4-segment LED display here with the numbers on it doesn't give me the decimal points. So all I can ever get is the whole number. So in this case, we got 10 miles per hour, when in reality, like if you looked on your serial monitor, it's probably 10 point something. And you think, well, does it really matter that much? It can if you're speed matching. If 10 point something happens to be 10.99, well, it's really basically 11 miles an hour, so you'd be off a whole mile an hour. I know we had a discussion last show, and as soon as I was done with the show, I was thinking, duh. You know, Dave and I were kind of talking about, he was saying it does round up, and I was thinking that was something in the code, but it's not. It's just, it's in the display. It probably is rounding up, but it doesn't have the ability to show me the decimal places. So that could very well have been 17.9 and it rounded up to 18, but I would never know if it was 17 point something or 18 point something, because it's only going to show me the first 2 digits, the whole number. So well, how are we going to skin that cat? Well, either go out buy a better one of these that does have the decimal capability, because they are out there. You're just going to spend more for them. They're not going to be the 99-cent free shipping from China ones. They're going to be a $5, $7 one from Adafruit or something like that. So I thought, why not go ahead and use our LCD display, same one that we used a while back. So my next sketch, let's go ahead and load the sketch first, then we'll come back and wire this. So I'll share my screen one more time. So the next sketch is version 7, LED display with 3 LEDs and an LCD. So this time we're going to have the whole kit and caboodle all at once. So let's go ahead and open that sketch. While I wait for that, I should probably close a couple of my other ones again. I have a whole bunch of them open right now. It's going to start killing me, so bear with me a few seconds. Well, no. That's good enough for now. So, oh, that's not the one. I hope I didn't end. There it is. So if I hit the upload button now, let's load this up to our Arduino. And I'm going to stop sharing and go back to here. So if you remember, and you know, if you guys have used this since we did a show on how to use these LCD displays with the backpack, this is the whole key right now, is this I2C backpack. All we need is 4 wires to make this thing work. If you remember from previous shows, you would actually literally hook up a wire to every one of these 16 pins, or at least 15 of them, I think, to make this function if it didn't have that I2C backpack on it. The I2C backpack is really simple. If you look on the back of it, probably not going to show, but there's writing next to each one of these pins. One of them is simply ground. One of them is simply power, the VCC. And then you have an SDA and an SCL pin. Now, the really neat thing about Arduino, and I'm going to unplug this because if you have the version 3 Uno and not an older one, they actually have a dedicated pins to SCL and SDA, which are, let's see if I can get this better for you. Way out here at the top right, almost by your USB connection, those very 2 end connections, if you look, say SCL and SDA on them. So that really makes hooking this thing up a no-brainer. You just match those up, SDA to SDA, SCL to SCL. 1 wire to 5 volts. And in this case, I ran mine right to the breadboard because I'm already using my 5-volt pin, sending it to the breadboard. And then, of course, your ground. And I did the same thing. I just ran the ground from the breadboard to the display.
Check the ground wire on the breadboard. So it's wiggling on your breadboard.
There we go. So any questions on it? You know, we're kind of ripping through this pretty fast, so I'm just going to take a pause here and let everybody get caught up. See, we lost somebody. Was that Dave or Andy? Who did we lose there? Andy. Okay. Any questions out in YouTube or in the chats or anything? Okay, so just checking the chat here. Now we're ready to go ahead and plug this back in and try our new sketch. Now, one thing you might need to do, if you haven't previously worked with us on the show and we did this LED, is you're going to need that library. So I'm going to go share the screen again and we'll look at the sketch for a moment. Close, that's the wrong one. So if you look at the very top, I did a little more cleanup on this code. I apologize for some of the other sketches. I didn't do a lot of cleanup on them. I was just experimenting and then using it as a copy and moving on. So this one I did spend a little bit of time cleaning up. I put some notes up at the top here. Includes code for the TM1637 LED display, which is your four-digit readout that we have been using up to now. It's the same as version 6, but adds the LCD display for speed readout. So we need to add 2 new libraries, which I'm going to highlight right here. One of them is the wire.h. If you should have that, I think that's a default Arduino library. And then we need the liquid crystal I2C.h library, which if you've worked along with us, you'll have that too, but it's already in the code. You shouldn't have to do anything special. So go ahead and try running yours and see if your LCD lights up, it should be good. Well, I shouldn't say that. It'll probably light up anyways, but once it lights up, stop sharing again. This time I'll try not to forget. There we go. This time when I trip it, there's the caution. It means it's waiting to sense. And there's the red, meaning it's, nope, see, I did something wrong. I don't have the right readout. Let me double check my pins. See, I'm not getting a readout on here right now. So that means I either knocked the wire loose or I've got my SCL and my SDA backwards. So let me just try switching those around. Now let's see what happens. I'm going to hit reset just for curiosity's sake because I had some code programmed in there. All right, this is not looking good. I must have knocked something loose somewhere. So I'm just going to check that all my pins are tight. Orange is SCA, or SCL, I mean. And green is SDA. Ground and power. So it looks like it's all connected correctly, but I'm not seeing a readout all of a sudden. So I'm going to go ahead and re-upload that sketch. I thought I uploaded it, maybe I didn't. So let's go ahead and upload it one more time. I've got that running in the background. Compiling. Uploading. And done. There we go. So, as you can see, the first thing it says is MRL trained speedometer. Well, you're free to go into that code and change that to say anything you want. How you doing there, Dave? You get that to work? Uh-oh. I scared him. Scared him right out of the room. And they're dropping like flies tonight. Oh, he's back.
Yep, sorry about that. Click the wrong button and you disconnected. It's right next to the unmute button.
Been there, done that. I thought we scared you right out of here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Of course, I did take advantage of those 10 seconds to, you know, have a little fun with you like you guys did when I left the room.
Of course.
So, Johnny, you want to share his screen once? Let's see how he's doing. Just, it's always kind of fun to see how, you know, I wired it one way, another guy wires it another way. You know, you got a bigger breadboard. You get, all right, I'm still seeing. There we go. Okay, I'm not seeing it that way, so I'm having a hard time. So did yours saying something on the LCD, Dave? At this point?
Not yet. No, not yet. I've got a compiler because I've have a couple of windows open.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to have to shut down and
start we'll come back to you then. So if you want to just go back to mine, Johnny. And all right. So as I said, you feel free to go on the line of code. It'll be real easy to see those words. You'll know what you can change it to. You put your own name there if you want. You could change it to whatever you want, but I just put that in there for fun. So as you can see, the green light is on. It's ready. It's sitting at 0 on this display. So this should all function exactly as it did before. The only difference is we added this. So I'll go ahead and trip the first sensor. We got our yellow light here, which means it's waiting. You got your red light in the center of your Arduino lit up, telling you the waiting, doing the same thing as the yellow one. Then I go ahead and trip the last one, and I get 1 mile an hour there. And if you look on here, you got 1.4. Whoop, that went away. 1.49 it said. And after that 5-second delay, you see this one back to green. And this says ready. And this one back to 0. So this is kind of like all of it mixed together into one big sketch. And from here you can disassemble it and make it do whatever you want it to do from here. And we're going to do that next. We'll just back down to strictly the LCD after this. So one more time, we just trip it. You notice right now I've got this one, I have some little arrows. And you could change that to whatever you want. You could say reading, you could do, you know, anything you would want it to say right now, like waiting for second sensor, whatever it is that you want. So once you trip it, there you go. Now it's 1.14 miles per hour. Boy, what a coincidence. That's like exactly the same amount of time as before. Just to prove that isn't what's in the code, click, click. There, 23.04 miles an hour. So now you can start to see that difference. You got 23 here, but 23 point. Now you can start to see the frustration of having this thing reset. It's like I can't even read and it's gone. So that's where one of the earlier sketches that I had it hold that number until the next time it ran. So that's one of your options. There's 3.19 miles per hour. Wait 5 seconds. And it's all up to you. You could make it wait 20 seconds if you want. The only difference is the red light will be on for 20 seconds and it'll be sitting here for 20 seconds before it comes back and says ready. So that's, if you remember, I'll show the code real quick again. That's a user adjustable thing. If you watched the last show, we talked about that quite a bit. You scroll way down to the bottom of your code, you'll see where it says delay, or in this case, it's 8,000. That's 8 seconds. So it's a user setting, and it sets the seconds and sets the delay in seconds before it resets. So if you want it to delay longer, I can just go ahead and change this number. I want to make it 12,000. I'll hit save, and then I'll re-upload. That gives me an extra 4 seconds to talk about it before it goes away. There we go, done uploading. So we'll stop sharing. I see a reset again, so now I got my nice little message, MRL train speedometer. Trip it. Trip it. Now it should be 12 seconds before it resets. So that gives me more time to read this. 11.68 here and 11 here. Now, one thing you just want to make sure you remember is that we talked about this last show. The distance between these two sensors is key. You have to measure that pretty precisely, and then make sure you change that, set that distance in your code, because right now this isn't true speeds. I have it set for 4 inches, and right now it's actually more like 2.5 inches. So what I did was I made this, I'll have to back out a little bit, maybe I made this little bracket I can mount them in. I actually have a different set of sensors in there right now. These are exactly 4 inches apart. I just made this out of some black foam core board. Didn't take too long. I also mounted, this was at the point in the time when I had the sketch that had 2 LEDs. Remember, we started with yellow, then we went to green. So that was about the time I decided to make this thing up. So I have the 2 sensors in here. Let's slide that one back down where it belongs. And I got the wiring on the back. All I have to do is plug that right into the breadboard in place of what I have here. And I set that next to my track, and this is how I can test the trains. And let me show you a real quick video on that. Get set up for it, then I'll share my screen. I want to show you how accurate this thing really is. It's pretty cool. Let's see which folder. Right there. Okay.
Yeah, if you're getting any feedback on your audio, yeah, that's coming from you, Chris. You might want to turn your speaker down just a little bit. Also, if you are getting feedback, you might try doing a refresh. We found holding the shift key down, well, just do a refresh because you're watching the show. Oh man, I tell you what, I'm doing too much here at one time. Yeah, just hit the refresh at the top of the screen. Refresh the show. See if that clears your audio up. Back to you, Chris.
All right. So how's my audio? Do I need to do a refresh before we move on? Okay. So I made this little video after I got done testing. And what it does is it's going to compare my speedometer to my commercially purchased AccuTrack speedometer. This is when I have it set up on that foam core board I just showed you. So it starts out the video, you can see it says ready. There's there it is sitting here. Now on my NC cab, I set it to 12 miles per hour. Or speed step 12, I should say. Went through my speedometer, look at that, 12.23. Then it goes through the AccuTrack, 12 miles an hour. So my speed matching scheme that I use is that I match mile per hour per speed step on the first 12 speed steps. I run off 28 speed steps instead of 128, or if you're in Digitrax, it's 100. And the first 12 speed steps, I match the miles per hour to the actual speed step number. And after that, I increment 2. But as you can see, I'll play this one more time real quick. All right, go. This is hiding my go button. There it is. Okay. So as you'll see on the on the cab, I set it to speed step 12 out of 28. Locomotive comes through, goes past my homemade speedometer. The reading is 12.23 miles per hour. It goes through the AccuTrack and it's 12 miles per hour. So that kind of proved how accurate my homemade speedometer was. And I ran it through all kinds of different speeds from slowest to fastest. And every time it, you know, it was right there. The only difference was I had decimal readouts on my speedometer where I don't get those on the AccuTrack unless you're under 9 miles an hour and under it will, but after 10 it drops the decimals. So I thought that's pretty cool verification that you did your work good. You know, if it's matching up that good, that means I accurately measured the distances between here, or in the case on my foam core board thing that I made up. So now that we have all this up and running, we really don't need all this. Okay, I guess we got a question. I'll be glad to answer that. What do you got, Johnny?
I actually, Tab, well, let me just go back up here. Tab was wondering, he said, I'm curious to know if he has any problems with electrical noise while using it with the locomotives. And then after you played the video, Tab posted up, I guess his video answered my question. So I guess he's talking about noise coming off the locomotive when it goes by, if it was causing any interference on the sensors.
Yeah, it's nothing that I've noticed yet. So, you know, the sensors themselves are infrared, so that shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, with the electronics being closer to the track like that, I guess there is the possibility of some kind of interference. I haven't noticed anything. You know, it's been rock solid for me all the way through. I mean, I tested slow speeds and high speeds, and pretty much my numbers match the AccuTrack, except that I have the extra decimal places. And like I said, the AccuTrack works kind of the same way as this guy does right here. It only really, whether it's rounding or not, it's only displaying the first 2 digits and not anything after the decimal place. So if I'm running 12.99 miles per hour, which is basically 13, the AccuTrack's going to say 12 and mine is going to say 12.99. So that tells me I'm really off by basically a whole mile per hour. So yeah, I haven't noticed any interference. It's been rock solid through all my testings.
But a lot of the, I suspect a lot of the issue you would possibly have with noise or interference would have to do with the physics of it, the infrared. However, the infrared is extremely directional. So if you aim it correctly and test it before you go glue these or hot glue these things into between your ties, if you're putting it on a permanent, you know, on a layout, but if you'll test it some and make sure you have it pointed correctly, I think you'll eliminate the vast majority of interference issues.
Okay. Cool. So let's take a look at Andy and Dave. Andy, did you get yours working?
Yeah, I'm a little behind. Work took me away for about 20 minutes, as is par for the course. So I got part of it working, not all of it.
That's fine. Dave, how about you? Did you get yours working?
Yeah, I'm having some issues that I'm trying to work through. My LCD. One of the things that I found though was that my LCD screen, I was using a different address. If you remember way back to when we were going through the program on the LCDs, different units had different addresses. You were at like X38 on the.
Oh yeah. Yep. You need the different address for yours.
Right. Okay. I needed like X27 or 3F or something like that.
I'm glad you brought that up, and that's why, you know, if you guys have problems, please jump in. I mean, somebody else could be having the same problem, so that, you know, what we like to do is work through this together. So yeah, if you're having problems like that, please jump in and let me know. You know. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you right now.
I'm seeing that on line 23.
Well, I'm using a 4-line, so it is X080. So, but a Google search gave me the results for it.
Yeah, I gotta reopen my. But I actually did record that. I have our last show, and the reason I want to show it is because there's a really good website that gives you all that information. There's about 5 or 6 different versions of this display, and they give you the addresses and all the other information that goes with it. So let me pull that up quick, and then I'll share my screen. Except my program locked up on me here. Okay, come on, waiting for you. Oh, starting to get some action now. There we go. Finally hitting the processor limits here. There. Done pretty good tonight so far. It took this long to start running into problems, so. All right,
Andrew.
I'm ready.
Yeah, Andrew Gilmore, real quick. He said that he posted some time back a sketch that looks for all the I2C addresses. So.
Yeah, and actually, this website I'm going to show you right now does the same thing. There's a sketch on there, right on there, that'll show you. So here's the website. Oh, I'll just go ahead and go to it, then I'll come back. But if you guys remember this, I'll take you back to the link, or actually here's the link right up here. So it's arduino-info.wikispaces.com/lcd-blue-i2c. If somebody could post that up on the chat, that would be great. Once you get to it, Andy or Johnny.
I'll get it.
So when you get to this page, they basically tell you as you scroll down, there's a version 1, version 2, version 3, a note about the addresses, which is what Dave was just talking about. And then before we get too carried, you know, it shows you how to hook it up. But if you scroll down to the bottom, you got each one they have a tell you how to identify it, and then a code to a sketch to test it out. But way down at the bottom, I2C address scanner for Arduino/Yourduino. So this, copy and paste this quick little sketch here and run it, and it'll identify the address for you on your serial monitor. But going back, the reason that I just happen to have the oddball address on mine, I have this version 1, so let's scroll down to version 1 right here. And right here it says most displays use address 0x27, but a few, including those labeled MH, use 0x3F. Well, guess what? Mine is labeled MH, and I had to use 0x3F to make mine work. So that's the reason, if yours isn't working, you need to change on the sketch I gave you. You'll need to change your address, figure out what it is, and then change it. And I'll show you in the code where that is right now. In fact, I think I even had a note in here at one time. I may have taken it out when I was cleaning up my code, but let's scroll back.
Also,
oh, it's still in there. So right here under it says for LCD, set the address to 0x27 for a 16-character 2-line display. A few use, so I basically copied this same note and put it right in here. But right in this line, liquid crystal underscore I2C, right there, that's the address. That's where you need to change it. So I needed to use the 0x3F, but right up here in my comments, I put in there that, you know, if not, it may very well be the 0x27. But grab the link to this page and keep it. I did, because this is an extremely informational page about these LCDs. In fact, they have pages like this for a lot of the Chinese clone stuff that you buy off of eBay dirt cheap and have no instructions for. This Arduino-info.wikispaces.com has lots of pages with really good information dissecting all those cheap, informationless, useful Arduino gadgets you can buy on eBay and Amazon and AliExpress and Banggood and everywhere else. So that's a really good resource. I strongly recommend you copy this link and keep it. So with that, let's go back to, where was I? Here we go.
56 minutes.
So the last thing we're going to do tonight, now that we have this one working with everything but the kitchen sink and maybe even the kitchen sink. It reminds me of something I just read the other day that was really funny. Is it might have been in a new model railroader or something, I'm not sure, but the guy said he even has an HO kitchen sink. So he likes doing all those really fine details. He's got a small layout where you can go really crazy with all the fine details on your layout. And he says, I think I even have an HO kitchen sink. So that was pretty funny. He says everything plus the kitchen sink. Here's a good example. If you look real quick, 29.90 before that goes away. Oh, it's gone. So that was almost a full mile-an-hour difference between one and the other, only because it's dropping the decimals, not because it's reading it wrong. All right, on to the last one. So for the last one, we're going to go ahead. Actually, we have two more, but they're only 5 minutes each. So if you go to the version 08C, if it's out there, I don't remember which ones I put out on that one, but there should be a 08C. What this one does is it pairs it down to just the LCD display, but it's still a one-way speedometer. So one thing you notice tonight, and I'll show you as soon as I get done screen sharing, is this is only a one-way speedometer. It only works in one direction. So in this sketch, basically, I stripped out some of the original code and I commented out other parts of it. Left it in there just for reference, so it's not 100% cleaned up. But this sketch, when I upload it, should boil us down to basically strictly the LCD display. The red digit display will no longer function, or will the LEDs on your, uh-oh. Okay, this might not be the right one. Okay, we're going to skip this one. I uploaded the wrong sketch for you guys. I'm going to close that. Let's go ahead and jump into the two-way version 01C. And load that up into your Arduino if you're working. If you're not, we'll let you catch up. The beauty of this is you can take all our sketches from the beginning of the last show to the end of this show, and no matter which hardware you have hooked up, you can load the sketches and it'll work. Because this was building blocks. We didn't change anything. We only added things as we went. So every time we added a piece of hardware, we changed the code and made a new sketch. But I can literally have all of this fully functional, just like I showed you, go back and load the sketch from the very first show, and all it's going to do is give me a basic readout on my red digit display. It isn't going to care that the other stuff's there. It's just not going to function, but it could pretty much mix and match all the sketches with the same hardware without changing anything. It's just a matter of which pieces of that hardware are going to work and which ones aren't. So I'm uploading two-way version 01C. If you notice one thing at the bottom of my screen, you see all this extra text that you may not see when you're loading. I found a setting in here. This is kind of helpful if you're having problems with your code crashing on you if you're creating stuff. Let me see if I can find where that was again. I think it was in File, Preferences. Oh, here. It says show verbose output during compilation or upload. You can choose. So what it's saying, when verbose is a word for lots of verbiage, lots of words. So by clicking that, it shows you every little thing. If you uncheck that, what you're seeing is just abbreviations and just a summary of what's happening. But if you're having problems with upload and you're having errors, if you click this little checkbox and say okay, it's going to give you a whole lot more information. Let me just pull this up and show you. It's giving you every minute detail of that when it's compiling and when it's uploading. So if you're ever having trouble, go ahead and hit that checkbox. That's why you see so much more going on when I do my upload. That's your tip for today. All right, I'll stop sharing and we'll go back to the screen and see what we got.
Tell me a little bit what the website is for the sketches we could do.
Okay, so what's going to happen now is I'm going to trip this, and all you see over here, it says started, but you see none of my LEDs over here lit up. This number on this display didn't change. You know, the only thing that happened is over here the word started. Now when I trip the second one, now I get a reading in miles per hour, 1.19 miles per hour. And then it goes eventually back to saying ready. So I made a few changes on this one to the point where now I'm going to keep this display. Notice I moved it down to the bottom line where it gives me the miles per hour readout. So then after it's ready to read again, the word ready comes up here, but my miles per hour from the last reading stay. And it's going to stay there until I do my next run through the sensor. So now when I trip the first sensor, now it goes back, clears the display and says started. That means that it's waiting for the next sensor trip. So now when I trip the next sensor, there's my reading. But now it doesn't say ready yet until about 5-second delay. Now it's ready. It could do another reading. If I try and read right now before it says ready, nothing happens. See? Now it just so happened to hit it about the same time, and then it did flip to started. So now you notice I keep going over here, but it's not stopping. You know why? Because this is bi-directional. I happen to hit that one first. So now I hit this one. So now we have a two-way speedometer. I can start it by tripping this one first and then this one, or I can do it the other way. Jumping ahead of myself, not wait until it's ready. So this was kind of my final speedometer, if you will, for my needs. Now your needs could be different. You could maybe make some more modifications or go back and only use one of the older sketches. So to me, this was the ultimate right here. I can now go ahead and just unplug this bad boy. I can get rid of all of these LEDs. I don't need any of that stuff. At the end of the day, I'm basically going to have a lot less of these wires, and I have a bi-directional speedometer that'll read in either direction, and it keeps the speed up until the next time I go through, but it also prompts me that it's ready. So kind of covered the best of all bases in one LCD display as far as the way I like a speedometer to function when I'm using it for speed matches. So like I say, you might have different needs for your speedometer, in which case you can use some or all of what we've gone through, or even add some more to it. And if you do, by all means, share it. You know, go post it up on Google Plus. send me an email if you're not on Google Plus, or if you want to share it, by all means. I think that's pretty much all I had for tonight. Do you want to open this up for a little discussion? Anything in the comments or chats or? Okay, so we'll go back and just revisit this. So here's the Arduino workshop link. If somebody could post that in the chat, I suggest you guys out in YouTube land, when you get a chance. I'm going to leave this up because people watching this later are not going to see this, but for those of you right now that are watching live, if somebody can post that in the chat, let them snag that off of there and put it in their favorites.
Well, I tell you what, Chris, it'd be better if you, when this show comes up in the playlist, go ahead and put that in the comments section.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay, every time I try to put it in the description, it doesn't stay. I'm having a problem with that, so if you want to put that in the comments on the video recording, that way they'll have it right there. And this will be up in about an hour after the show's over.
But in the meantime, it's https://sites.google.com/view/Arduino workshop, all one word.
So I did get that posted in the chat.
All right, very good. And this is where, sometime in the next week or two, as soon as I get a chance and I figure out what I'm going to do for the next show, I'll update this with, especially if we're going to do a parts list. But I've got 2 different ideas for the next show, and I haven't settled on which way I'm going to go yet. So as soon as I do, I'll post that, and then I'll push this stuff down further down the page like I did here. I actually created separate pages. If you click one of these links, it takes you to a new page with a bunch of the goodies from when we did that sketch, and then the links. Here was the one for the RFID turnout control. There's the links to the sketches, or even a link to the YouTube video if you want to go back and watch it. But up on the upper right here, there's home, and then here previous workshops. That's just another page. I might end up creating a page for each workshop. We'll see as time goes by, but hang on to this one. And then the other, I'm going to go back to that other link too, because this one, like I said, is just, I love this website here. If you drop this Arduino-info.wikispaces, WIKISPACES.com. And in this case, it's /LCD-blue-I2C. But if you take that off, go to the home page for this website, there's a whole list of different stuff that they have information on. And like I said, a lot of it is these generic, cheap Chinese knockoff parts. I really appreciate the fact that they've taken the time to, go through some of these things and figure out all the little differences, subtle differences, and things you might have to do to make them work. So, I give them props, and you guys should too. Go out there, give them a little thank you on their, if they have a place to leave comments. This is a very, very handy website. With that, any other questions or comments, concerns? And if you have any suggestions for an upcoming show, let me get back here. There we go. If you guys have any questions or comments for future shows, just let me know, because I'm wide open. But I'm actually thinking of changing the format a little for next year, as far as not as much building, but presenting projects and all the information you need to do them, and then having a guest appear that may have created that project that can tell us all about it and walk us through it. But we're getting to the point where we're past beginners and things are getting a little more elaborate to try and build live. So I'm thinking of just tweaking the format a little bit toward giving you all the information, parts lists, walk through a description of it and a good explanation of it by whoever created it, whether it's myself or somebody else. And then, you know, give you all the ammunition, and then maybe the next time come back and do a little show and tell and problem solving if anyone had problems. So let me know what you think of that. Or if you want to just stay on this format, that's fine too. But we have to think about what we're going to do starting next year. So with that, Dave, Andy, you want to show yours off a little bit before we hang up here?
I got Dave.
Johnny, you want to?
Yep, you can see that I eventually get mine going.
Andy, Chris, turn your speakers down.
What's that?
And it is working.
Yeah, turn your speakers down, getting a little feedback. All right, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, you can see I got it working just like Chris wanted, or Chris's program said. And we'll wait for ready, start, and you can see once again it's bi-directional both ways. Works great.
I see you've got a 4-line display instead of a 2-line display too, and it's still working just fine, huh?
I had to make a couple modifications in the code. There's one spot where you say 16 by 2, and I changed that to 20 by 4. Apparently there was an issue with the display that I was using. Wasn't working quite right, so as soon as I switched it over, it started working. So be aware that hardware problems can crop up and cause you problems. And be aware that you might want to train them.
If you're not using the exact same hardware I'm using, you may have to make some tweaks to the code. And you know, if you get stuck, by all means email me. I'll see what I can do to help you out, because you know, I don't have a huge selection of different parts to use. I just use what I have on hand, and but we can figure out what it takes. You know, sometimes it's just a matter of a different library and a couple little different verbiage in your code to make something else function. You know, there's some beautiful color displays that might be really neat too, you know.
In my case, it was actually a hardware problem. I could not get it to work with the hardware I had, and I just simply switched it over to the 4-line display, and it worked.
So, yeah, that little square scatter saved my bacon on this too, because I run that little scatter and found what the I2C address that I needed, which was different than any of those posted. So, because I ended up having to be at I don't know, whatever it was, because it's a 4x20 also. At that array, I did the same thing Dave did too, the 4x20. And mine's spent out just fine, works just fine. And it works a lot better once I got rid of that MRL stuff.
Johnny wants to share his. I made his full screen, and I see he's got a little Norfolk and Western there, so just a little flavor for the other guys. See, I only had the two-line display, so I didn't have time to, or I don't have the space to add that to stay on all the time. But so I just had mine as a splash screen intro. But you got a 4-line display. You can add, you know, this is actually something I thought about, and that's why it's kind of neat to see you guys have these. What I was thinking, if I had a 4-line display, is you keep each of the previous readings and just have them scroll down a line. So when you're speed matching, you can always look back to your previous 2 times that you read. And
oh, no, that's a good idea. I like that.
Because where it really comes in handy is if you guys haven't used this for speed matching yet, and you probably will be in the future. The speed matching process is basically, if you're using JMRI, is you run it through the speedometer at a certain speed. You adjust your speed steps in JMRI, you write it to the decoder, and then you run it through again and see what the difference was. Well, in between there, half the time I always remember, okay, now it's 28. What was it just the time before? You know what I mean? It's like when you start getting old and you're start losing your short-term memory.
A notepad there. That's pretty handy. And I like the idea of even a few permanent things, like on my speed match table, on my programming track, I'm going to put one of these, and having that scroller is absolutely perfect. Having that scroll up every time you do a new one. But I'm going to use them on the permanent parts of the layout where speed is critical, like in the serious parts of the helper district. I'm going to put things like, you know, recommended speed, maximum speed in the measurements there. So you can say, this is what I'm running, but this is kind of where I should be.
And just to give you guys a, you know, before we hang up here, just to show you where my brain is at, this is what I was actually thinking of earlier today. Is take the speedometer, you buy one of those little MP3 players you can buy for about $1, connect it on there with a speech synthesizer or a text-to-speech reader, so you're actually doing like a hotbox detector. But then you connect it up, you take an FRS radio and put a little relay in there so that it actually activates the radio. You could have this thing call out. So some guy comes through too fast, they actually have detectors like that, or usually it'll say train too slow. So it'll say like MRL detector, milepost 144, speed too slow. And it'll come over the radio just like a hotbox detector, you know, or speed too fast, you know. So that'll get guys to slow down when everybody in the room hears that they just flew through too fast.
What you hope for is milepost 413.2, no defect.
Right.
Yeah. So and that would be cool, especially if you used FRS radios. That wouldn't be hard at all to do that. Of course.
Yeah. So I was actually thinking, you know, it started out where I was thinking for a future project to do a detector just like that. And I found a guy that has a really cool sketch where he's using a laser. My problem was, how do you get just the bottom of an HO wheel and not catch the truck, so that you can actually count the 2 wheels and not pick up the truck? But he's using a laser with a photodiode receiver on the other side. And then he kind of had the same thing, or he made a hotbox detector or a defect detector, and he was trying to, he used an FM transmitter. You buy these cheap FM transmitters for like putting your iPhone music through your car speakers. So that's what he was using. But then I kind of thought, well, the FRS radios that we use for my op sessions, it'd be really cool to have it come over the FRS radio.
I think you could count the wheels.
Yeah, you could be able to count the wheels with a laser.
Right. And so if you, the laser instead of the IR, and it would be right up just above the rail head, because I'm
skimming the top of the rail, right?
And just right across the top of the rail, you would count the wheels just like the prototype, where it says wheel 62 hotbox detected. Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, I found another guy that went one step further, and he put a heat sensor on there, and when you put those resistors on for, you know, like your occupancy for electronic sensing for occupancy, well, those resistors get a little bit warm. So he actually puts a resistor on one of them that gets fairly warm, and it'll read that one resistor when it goes by. So it's literally a hot box. How crazy is that?
I love that.
So that's some of the cool things we could do down the road. I'm just kind of talking crazy right now, but I think we'll hang her up for tonight, and appreciate having you guys on, and hope to see you again next show. All right, Johnny, take it away.
All right, Chris, that was a really interesting show. We'll have to deduct a few points from Andy for having to leave.
As long as the pay makes up for it, we'll see how that goes.
Let's see how that one works.
Mine's working.
Yeah. Alrighty, go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check the schedules for the Tuesday and Wednesday shows. Those are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. The Thursday and the Saturday once a month show is at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And I forgot at the beginning of the show, we do have a new show. It's called Into the Locomotive Shop. That airs on Wednesday. It'll be the third Wednesday of the month. And so that's going to be at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We had a very good response on the first show. That was with Joe. He's put a big effort into his show there. He's doing a little different format than what we've been doing, and it seems to be working really well using video as part of the show. So we're really interested in watching that, see how it works, and incorporating it maybe into some other shows. Also, be sure and click on the EMAG and sign up for an email notification, so when the EMAG comes out, you'll be notified and can download it. JD and his team do a good job on that. And let's see what's the next show here. Alright, we got a show next week, next Tuesday. It's called the Fine Scale Show. It's got that, usually unshaven bum named Andy running the show with his sidekick, Ralph and Miles. So that's always a good show too. So be sure to tune in next Tuesday at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Well, with that said, we got the Thursday night show tomorrow night. That's Johnny's Mall Train Talk. That'll be at 9 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Central. So, I mean 10 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Central. I'm getting too many time zones here. So we shall see you tomorrow night. Y'all have a good evening. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.